Hi, this is the AI Storyteller. I'm Mark. The present issue provides you with an interpretation of the American literary classic The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. The Mississippi River has not only witnessed the rapid economic development of the United States since the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, but has also nurtured abundant literary treasures. In this issue, we will discuss a renowned writer known for his satirical humor, Mark Twain. While many may associate him primarily with humor, authors such as Nobel laureates Faulkner and Hemingway consider Mark Twain the unquestionable father of American literature. Born by the banks of the Mississippi River in November 1835, Mark Twain's early life was marked by challenges. Losing his father at a young age, he left school to support himself and found work on the Mississippi River. He later served in the military and tried his hand at mining out west. However, his aspirations for striking it rich in the gold rush proved futile. It wasn't until he reached his 30s that Mark Twain was employed by several newspapers, formally beginning his career as a writer and delving into the rich mines of life's experiences. At that time, a form of humor literature, often satirical and at times even crude, was popular in the American West and found a market in newspapers. Mark Twain, with his diverse life experiences and initial forays into the literary world, was deeply influenced by this trend and produced a number of similar works. Yet, he never succumbed to vulgarity. Instead, he employed a humorous approach to delve deeply into societal issues. At the age of 31, he shot to fame with the humorous short story The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. Subsequently, a series of satirical works targeting politicians set him apart from mere purveyors of reader-pleasing humor, establishing him as a discerning critic. However, this critic never bore deep-seated grudges. He always maintained a serious demeanor while discussing light-hearted matters, combining elements of pain, tears, and laughter, imbued with a sense of sophisticated irony. His works, enjoyable to read and filled with insightful mockery of human nature, have been included in the curricula of many countries' secondary schools for over a century. Did the United States enter a so-called golden age after the Civil War? Mark Twain unveiled the gilded facade through the experiences of a young boy. This lad is one of his most iconic literary creations, Tom Sawyer. His story is the subject of this issue, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. The tale unfolds in the inland village of St. Petersburg along the banks of the Mississippi River, a place that you won't find on a map, as it's a pseudonym Mark Twain assigned to his hometown. Though the village is fictional, the lively characters it hosts are familiar figures: chattering parents, sanctimonious preachers, alcoholics, villains, and of course, naughty children. Among this group of children, the most mischievous and thoughtful is Tom Sawyer, raised by his aunt after losing his mother. Educated in rules and regulations, he's the least likely to follow them. He despises activities like washing his face, wearing clean clothes, and tattling. Mondays are even worse, as they mean spending a week imprisoned in the school. It seems that no tactics work against this mischievous child. Instead, this increasingly resilient boy learns to slip his hands and feet through the holes in his constraints, using his own methods to explore and ponder the world. One night, Tom got carried away playing and returned home late. As he was climbing in through the window, his aunt caught him in the act. Consequently, early on Saturday morning, a disheartened face with a pail of whitewash in one hand and a long-handled brush in the other appeared on the road. Confronted by a row of fences, Tom was practically resigned to his fate, desperately seeking a scapegoat. The unsuspecting victim soon arrived. Tom, at the cost of a marble and a chance to admire his own inflamed toe, managed to subcontract the arduous task of whitewashing the fence. However, just as his scheme was unfolding, his aunt appeared out of nowhere, thwarting Tom's plan. Since bribing his way out of the task failed, Tom devised another plan. Employing extravagant and alluring brushstrokes, he uttered the phrase, "Now, you don't get to be a boy every day with a chance to whitewash a fence," and transformed punishment into enjoyment, turning the whitewashing chore into an art form. Suddenly, a steady stream of unsuspecting victims appeared, lining up to offer their services in whitewashing the fence. Tom, snugly tucked away in the shade, munched on an apple and counted his newly acquired treasures: a kite, a dead rat, 12 marbles, a harmonica, a one-eyed kitten, 4 orange peels, and a key that couldn't open anything. Thanks to his skillful whitewashing, his aunt unprecedentedly rewarded Tom with a donut. Mark Twain's cleverly designed opening scene allows the young protagonist to discover a great principle of human life. If you want someone to desire something, you must create a counterforce that prevents them from obtaining it. It's akin to wealthy individuals in the summer driving their carriages to a far-off place to escape the heat, a privilege and a symbol of wealth. However, if they were to receive a salary for this activity, it would become work, and they would lose interest. This principle has held true throughout history. Trading the privilege of whitewashing the fence made Tom a wealthy individual. If he could only attain prestige to match, Tom would be the winner in life. The opportunity quickly presented itself. This time, he extended his business to the Sunday school. In layman's terms, it was the supplementary education institution of that era, not for math or science, but for religious studies. Originating in the late 18th century, it thrived in the first half of the 19th century before being gradually replaced by public schools. The world's first Sunday school was established by an English philanthropist, providing religious and literacy education for impoverished youth free of charge on Sundays. When this concept reached the United States, it focused solely on teaching the Bible. To confine young boys and girls to such a place, St. Petersburg's Sunday school had its own set of tricks. The game's rules were simple: recite 2 passages to earn a blue ticket, trade 10 blue tickets for a red one, and 10 red tickets equaled a yellow ticket. Accumulate 10 yellow tickets, and you could obtain an illustrated version of the Bible worth 40 cents. In the village, a luckless lad had managed to acquire 4 or 5 copies of the Bible. On special occasions, he was summoned to perform publicly. Tom disliked reciting passages, yet he yearned for this honor. That day, at the entrance of the Sunday school, he first traded a piece of licorice and a fishhook for a yellow ticket, then exchanged 2 large marbles for 3 red tickets. Before long, the boys he intercepted had earned Tom an abundance of tickets. As Tom received his Bible and sat beside the guests on stage, the boys' guts turned green with envy. The worthless odds and ends they had traded with Tom for the privilege of whitewashing the fence were now back in their hands. Despite Tom's double success in fame and fortune, he did not garner greater admiration, mainly because he employed deceitful tactics. The true hero in the boys' eyes was Huckleberry Finn, the son of the town drunkard, known as the town's outcast. This wild child was the first to go barefoot in the spring and the last to put on shoes in the fall. He could skip washing his face, freely curse, never address anyone as a teacher, and possessed everything that made life flavorful. Tom and Huck, this mischievous pair, conspired one moonlit night to visit the graveyard and ascertain the existence of ghosts. Unintentionally, they stumbled upon a murder scene. A doctor from the village had hired 2 men to come and grave rob under the cover of night. The 3 fell into dispute over payment, leading to a brawl in which the doctor was accidentally killed. Hidden in the shadows, shivering with cold, the young boys witnessed it all. One of the accomplices, a drunkard named Muff Potter, succumbed to his inebriation and fell unconscious after only a few blows. The real perpetrator, however, was an Indian named Injun Joe, notorious in the village. After committing the murder, Joe placed the murder weapon in the hands of the unconscious Muff Potter, framing him for the crime. Confused upon awakening, Muff Potter was unable to defend himself and was thrown into prison. The 2 young boys were stricken with fear, made a solemn oath, and vowed to keep this dreadful secret. They realized that compared to truancy, lying, and pranks, committing murder and framing someone for it was true evil. Strangely, the villagers were more inclined to suspect Injun Joe, but lacked the evidence to convict him. Why was that? After the Civil War, although many southern states abolished slavery, racial discrimination and oppression persisted. While the case had not reached a definitive conclusion, suspicions continued to hover over Injun Joe. The tortured Tom, his soul in turmoil, sank into an unprecedented melancholy. With no outlet for his woes, he decided to run away from home. Halfway there, he encountered his companion Joe Harper, who tearfully recounted how he had been spanked by his mother for tasting a type of cream he had never tried before. The two kindred spirits resolved to bid farewell to the mundane world and become pirates on the Mississippi River. How could such an enticing plan exclude their steadfast friend Huckleberry Finn? The three young companions embarked together and established their camp on a small island 3 miles away. The first day of their pirate life felt like paradise, earth as their bed, sky as their blanket. They seemed to have unleashed a lifetime of wildness and pilfered a lifetime of laziness. Their reverie, however, was short-lived, as they noticed a ferry loaded with people approaching the town's riverbank. Shortly thereafter, a cloud of white smoke erupted from the water's surface. Tom shivered, realizing that the entire village had mobilized to retrieve their presumed bodies. Huckleberry began to probe his companions with circumspect questions about how they viewed re-entering the civilized world. His efforts, however, only led to Tom's mockery, temporarily quelling the rebellion within the small group. Unexpectedly, that very night, Tom defected first. Though he had left home in anger, Tom was almost resigned to meeting his demise. Yet, he had always clung to one persistent idea. He had often fantasized about his own funeral, imagining his cold body being retrieved from the water. Only then would his aunt plead with God to return her child, and she would never scold Tom again. Driven by his conscience, Tom believed it necessary to see his aunt one more time. He rowed ashore, scaled the fence, and hid under his aunt's large bed. At that moment, his aunt was bawling and regretting her actions. Beneath the bed, Tom's tears flowed just as secretly. However, to have the civilized world embrace them anew, to have his aunt love them as fervently as she had just sworn, now was not the time. Tom had his own plans. He quickly returned to the island. It was an exceptionally tranquil Sunday, the mournful tolling of the bells replacing the usual school dismissal chime. The small church had never been so packed. Amid the infinite sorrow, the pastor painted a picture of 3 angels. As the image of these angels flooded through people's minds, they suddenly transformed into 3 ragged pirates. On that day, Tom received more kisses and slaps than he had received throughout the past year. For Tom, the past upheavals and adventures seemed to have transformed into a reservoir of energy. Thinking of the town-drunk Muff Potter, who had helped mend his kite and fix his fishing hook, and considering he was Muff's only hope, Tom overcame his internal struggle. Against his pledge to Huck, he bravely testified in court during the trial of the grave robbery, boldly identifying the true culprit. To everyone's astonishment, Injun Joe managed to escape right then and there. Once again, Tom made headlines, transforming from a troubled youth into a paragon of justice. However, his friend Huck couldn't help but pose a philosophically charged question. If you can take terrible things out of a sworn oath, what's left of human trust? Fortunately, Tom wasn't burdened by idol worship, and his pirate dreams with Huck remained unwavering. The duo continued to dig in one place today and play tricks in another the next, guided by an otherworldly force that led them to an abandoned haunted house. Within lay a pirate's essential, a treasure chest filled with money. Yet the guardian of this ill-gotten gain was none other than the fugitive, Injun Joe. The dream was tantalizingly close, but the devil lurked nearby. The two dared not make rash moves, so they took turns keeping watch and closely monitoring Joe's movements. On the day when it was Huck's turn to watch, Tom, led by a whim, ventured off from the camping group to explore a cave. Unbeknownst to him, he was almost lost for good. During his days of absence, lone hero Huck followed Joe meticulously, and when Joe attempted to assault a widow, Huck called for reinforcements just in time. Unfortunately, the perpetrator escaped once again. Meanwhile, trapped in the dark cave, Tom, in his quest for an exit, had an unexpected encounter with Joe, who had also sought refuge in the cave. This event humorously exemplified the saying ironic twist of fate. Luckily, Joe's guilty conscience forced him to disappear before any sort of enemy confrontation could play out. As the villagers prepared to hold a funeral for the missing Tom, he noticed a distant light. Following it, he found himself at the entrance of the cave, and outside flowed the mighty Mississippi River. Tom Sawyer's adventures reached a conclusion here. Just as Mark Twain wrote at the end of the novel, this story recounted the history of a boy and thus had to stop here. To continue further would entail delving into the history of an adult. In an adult novel, you should know where to end, yes, with a marriage. But the tale of a youth is different. It should end where it ought to end. Tom Sawyer might be the most famous mischievous boy figure in literary history. As we repeatedly laugh, agonize, and contemplate over his patchy misdeeds and heroic exploits, we can't help but ask ourselves, how far have I, now, drifted from that initial me? If we rigidly categorize this book as children's literature, it would lose a significant portion of its readership. Mark Twain reminded us in his afterword that while the book is intended to entertain young boys and girls, even those who have grown up shouldn't dismiss it. Therefore, let's delve deeper into the background of its creation, the character personalities, and their influence on subsequent generations. It is said that Mark Twain himself was quite a troublemaker in his youth, enduring beatings and escaping classes just like Tom did. According to him, many of Tom Sawyer's adventurous stories were rooted in reality, and the young protagonist's character was a blend of traits from three boys he knew. Thus, Twain was able to intimately understand and immerse himself in the emotions of the mischievous boy, seamlessly weaving the era's factors and his own experiences into the novel. Written in the 1870s, during a period when American capitalism was entering a monopolistic phase and the genteel Victorian era was gradually fading away, the societal shift is reflected in individuals, especially the youth, challenging traditional norms. Set in the 1830s to 1840s, before the outbreak of the Civil War, the novel serves as a historical analogy. Characters like Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn epitomize a group of boys who would rather be outlaws than presidents of the United States, continuously stirring up tumultuous waves within a stagnant and conservative society. An iconic scene involving the trading of colored tickets for a Bible serves as a satirical commentary on rigid traditional and religious education, particularly represented by Sunday school. A child who can't even remember the 12 apostles of Jesus manages to con his way into obtaining a Bible. Tom's character is also quite intriguing. He's exceptionally clever, often cunning, and his quick thinking can be seen in instances such as trading the fence painting privilege for a blank Bible. This carries metaphorical allusions to certain societal rules and the path of life. He's both sensitive and responsible. At the story's end, when the villagers accidentally seal Injun Joe in a cave while trying to rescue Tom, a pang of sorrow strikes Tom's heart. As the one who testified against Joe, he wrestles with a feeling of reluctance at seeing the villain perish. Twain's design of this poetic justice for the antagonist Joe is quite dramatic, and Tom's internal conflict that follows reflects a manifestation of humane values rooted in innocence and instinct. As readers progress, they realize that their initial impression of Tom as a rascal was mistaken. This troublemaker is more mischievous than malicious. Beneath his rough exterior lies a noble soul, distinct from the ordinary. Notably, the novel's conclusion hints that Tom will grow up to become a member of St. Petersburg's adult world. Using terminology often employed in literary criticism, tinted with a certain class bias, this suggests that the revolution was incomplete, revealing the author's limitations. However, Twain sowed seeds for the future. Tom's friend, Huckleberry Finn, refuses to return to civilization and chooses to roam the Mississippi River, embarking on his own adventurous journey. His story continues in the sequel, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. In the year of the publication of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Mark Twain began crafting its sequel. He invested his unfinished hopes for Tom Sawyer into Huckleberry Finn. Twain not only allowed Huck to roam freely in the natural world, experiencing the beauty of a life of freedom, but also emphasized the sincere and equal friendship between this white boy and a black slave, which was quite remarkable for its time. Hemingway even believed that all American literature stemmed from Mark Twain's book. While on a hunting trip in Africa, he introduced his country's literature to a Danish person, saying, "The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is our best book. Before it, there was no literature. And there will be none after it that can match it." The Adventures of Tom Sawyer blends childlike wonder, satire, and humor into one, offering the joy of reading. It remains a timeless classic that students in many countries still consider essential reading material. the young whitewasher has long transcended the boundaries of St. Petersburg and become Tom Sawyer worldwide. As early as 1917, the novel was adapted for the silver screen. Over the past century, Germany, Romania, the Soviet Union, Czech Republic, Mexico, and Japan have all turned it into films or animated series. In the American sci-fi movie The Borrowers, Tom Sawyer even appeared as an adult for the first time, portrayed as a secret agent. However, as to what these children might become as adults, the author doesn't seem to encourage such curiosity. He believes the wisest course is to leave their current life circumstances undisclosed. Faulkner called Mark Twain the first truly American writer. We are all, in a sense, his heirs. Twain's skill with colloquial language and slang made him a language master, according to the playwright George Bernard Shaw. Lu Xun once said that Mark Twain became a humorist out of necessity, finding humor in life, and this humor contained a sense of sorrow and irony, stemming from dissatisfaction with such a life. In conclusion, let's recap the key points of this discussion. First, Mark Twain entered the literary world with humor and satire, providing a distinctive and sharp critique of societal issues. He became a prominent representative of late 19th century American realism, hailed as the father of American literature by Faulkner, Hemingway, and other great authors. Second, the adventures of Tom Sawyer created a classic image of a mischievous boy in literary history, a clever fusion of Mark Twain's personal experiences and the zeitgeist. Beneath the troublemaker's exterior lies a noble soul distinct from the ordinary, his rebellion and goodness serving as a significant satire and challenge to the rigid and stagnant adult world. Third, this book is not only a timeless classic spanning over a century but also gave birth to an immortal sequel, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, a rarity in literary history. Well, that concludes the content for this episode. If you enjoyed my video, please click like, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your friends. Thank you.